Jin sat in her spaceship, looking at the bright blue planet called Earth through her window. Her thin fingers moved across the computer screen as she read the new contract. The job seemed simple: kill a man who owned a small cafe in New Seoul Colony. The payment, however, was not simple at all. It was enough money to buy a small moon. "This has to be a mistake," she said to herself, her voice soft in the quiet ship. She had been killing people for 200 years, but she had never seen payment this high for such an easy target. She pressed a button on her desk, and a hologram appeared. It showed a man in his early 30s with kind eyes and a gentle smile. His name was Jin Ho, and according to the file, he was just a normal human who made coffee and bread for a living. He had a young daughter and no weapons. He wasn't rich or powerful. He wasn't a politician or a criminal. "Do Yun," she called out, and another hologram appeared. This one showed a well-dressed Korean businessman, though Jin knew this was just a disguise. Do Yun was actually a blue-skinned alien who helped her find information. "The greatest assassin in the universe calls," Do Yun said with a small bow. "How may I help?" "This new contract. Tell me what you know about the target." Do Yun looked at the file and raised his eyebrows. "Jin Ho. He runs the Stardust Cafe in New Seoul Colony. Makes excellent sweet bread, I hear. Single father. Pays his taxes. Helps old ladies cross the street. That's all." "Then why is someone paying this much to kill him?" Jin asked, pointing to the number on the screen. Do Yun's face became serious. "That is unusual. Very unusual. Would you like me to investigate further?" Jin looked at Jin Ho's picture again. There was something about his eyes that bothered her. They were too kind, too honest. In her long life, she had learned that people with eyes like that often had the biggest secrets. "No," she said finally. "I'll take the contract." "Are you sure? Something feels wrong about this one." Jin stood up, her black suit shifting like liquid shadow around her body. "I am the shadow of silence. I have killed presidents and crime lords. I have ended wars and started them. I have never failed a contract in 2 centuries. She touched the silver pendant at her neck, the only thing she had kept from her home world. "A simple cafe owner will not be the one to break my perfect record." Do Yun sighed. "As you wish. But Jin." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Watch yourself on Earth. Humans, they're different. They don't always make sense." Jin ignored his warning as she began preparing her weapons. Her suit could make her invisible, her guns could kill from 2 miles away, and her poisons could not be detected by any known scanner. She had everything she needed to kill one simple human. She set her ship's course for Earth, specifically the New Seoul Colony. As she entered the atmosphere, the city's lights spread out below her like stars on the ground. Massive buildings reached toward the sky, their surfaces reflecting the light of Earth's moon. Flying cars moved in neat lines between the towers, and holograms advertised everything from food to vacation packages to other planets. Her ship's computer found Jin Ho's cafe. It was in an older part of the city, where the buildings were shorter and closer together. The streets there were still made for people to walk on, not just for flying cars. As Jin prepared for landing, she looked at Jin Ho's picture one last time. Just another target, she told herself. But somewhere in the back of her mind, Do Yun's warning echoed. Humans don't always make sense. She pushed the thought away. After all, how dangerous could one human father be? Jin watched the Stardust Cafe from her invisible position across the street. She had been there for 3 days, studying Jin Ho's daily routine. The cafe opened at sunrise every morning, and the smell of fresh bread filled the street. Jin Ho worked with a smile on his face, greeting every customer by name. His daughter, Sumin, came to the cafe after school each day. She was small for an 8-year-old with bright eyes and 2 neat braids. She would sit at a corner table, doing her homework and drawing pictures with colored pencils. Nothing special at all, Jin whispered to herself, but something kept her from taking the shot. 200 years of experience had taught her to trust her instincts. On the fourth day, everything changed. 3 large men entered the cafe. They weren't there for coffee. He-Jin could tell by the way they moved. They were looking for trouble. Behind them came a family of green-skinned aliens, a mother and 2 small children. They looked scared. "We told you last week," the biggest man said to the alien mother. "Your kind isn't welcome in this neighborhood." The cafe went quiet. The alien children hid behind their mother. He-Jin reached for her weapon, expecting violence. In her experience, scenes like this always ended in blood. But then, Jin-Ho stepped out from behind the counter. He wasn't carrying anything. He wasn't in a fighting stance. He just walked over, calm as could be, and smiled. "Welcome to Stardust Cafe," he said to the men. "I see you've met Mrs. Kira and her children. They're some of my best customers. Kira's family has a wonderful tradition of sharing stories over hot drinks. Would you like to join them?" The lead man looked confused. He had come for a fight, but Jin-Ho was offering him a seat and a story instead. "We don't sit with aliens," another man growled. "That's too bad," Jin-Ho said. "Kira's family comes from a world where the oceans sing at sunset. Her children were born on a space station near Saturn. They have such amazing stories." He turned to the kids. "Min-Ki, why don't you tell them about the rainbow rings you saw last week?" The smaller alien child peeked out from behind his mother. They were all colors at once, like dancing light. One of the men shifted uncomfortably. He-Jin could see the anger leaving his face, replaced by curiosity. Jin-Ho smiled again. "First cup of coffee is free for anyone willing to share a story. It's a cafe tradition." 15 minutes later, the men were sitting with Kira's family, drinking coffee and listening to tales about singing oceans and dancing rings. They had forgotten why they were angry in the first place. He-Jin watched in disbelief. In 2 centuries, she had never seen potential violence turned into peaceful conversation so easily. No threats, no weapons, no force, just words and kindness. Then something even stranger happened. Sumin, who had been drawing quietly through the whole scene, looked directly at He-Jin. Not at the window near He-Jin, but at He-Jin herself. It should have been impossible. He-Jin's suit made her completely invisible to all gnome life forms. The little girl smiled and held up her drawing. It showed a woman in black, standing in the shadows. He-Jin felt a chill run down her spine. The drawing looked exactly like her. Sumin wrote something at the bottom of the paper. "Why are you so sad?" He-Jin stepped back, her heart beating fast for the first time in decades. The child could see her. The child could see through her perfect camouflage. And somehow, this 8-year-old human could see something that He-Jin had hidden from herself for 200 years. Du-Yun's warning echoed in her mind. Humans don't always make sense. "What are you?" she whispered, looking at the father and daughter. For the first time in her long career, He-Jin realized she might be dealing with something she didn't understand at all. He-Jin sat in her cloaked ship, studying the data on her screens. She had taken a sample of Jin-Ho's DNA while he slept, using one of her smallest scanning drones. The results made no sense at all. "Du-Yun," she called, activating the hologram communicator. "I need answers." The blue-skinned alien appeared, wearing his usual business suit disguise. "I was wondering when you would call." "Found something interesting." He-Jin sent him the DNA scan results. "Look at the genetic structure. It's been modified." Du-Yun studied the data, his expression growing more serious. "This is advanced work. Military grade. But the pattern is strange. Most genetic modifications are designed to enhance strength, speed, or combat abilities. This is different." "Different how?" He-Jin asked. "The modifications are focused on the brain's emotional centers, the areas that control empathy, emotional understanding, and social connections." Du-Yun looked troubled. "He-Jin, I did more research on your contract. You're not the first assassin sent to kill this man. He-Jin leaned forward. What do you mean? In the past 5 years, 7 other assassins accepted contracts on Jinho. All of them disappeared. Du Yun paused. No bodies were ever found. They simply vanished. He-Jin thought about how Jinho had handled the situation in the cafe. No violence, no threats. Just words and understanding. It shouldn't have worked, but it did. There's more, Du Yun continued. I found a pattern. Each assassin disappeared exactly 3 days after making first contact with the target. He-Jin checked her internal clock. It had been 3 days since she first started watching Jinho. The daughter, He-Jin said suddenly. What do you know about her? Du Yun typed something into his computer. Sumin, born 8 years ago in New Seoul Colony. Mother died during childbirth. No unusual medical records. Except, he stopped. Except what? Except she's never been sick. Not once. Not even a cold. And her school records show extremely high scores in emotional intelligence and social understanding. Off the charts, actually. He-Jin remembered how the child had seen through her invisible suit. How she had known. He-Jin was sad. Someone is trying to create a new kind of human, He-Jin said slowly. Not a warrior. Something else. The question is who, Du Yun replied. And why they want him dead badly enough to risk losing so many assassins. He-Jin stood up and walked to her ship's window. The Stardust Cafe was visible in the distance, its warm lights glowing in the evening darkness. She could see Jinho cleaning tables through the window. Sumin sat at her usual corner table, drawing. As if sensing He-Jin's gaze, Sumin looked up. Even from this distance, their eyes seemed to meet. The child held up another drawing. This one showed He-Jin sitting in her ship, looking sad and alone. Du Yun, He-Jin said quietly, I need you to find out everything you can about genetic modification programs on Earth. Focus on projects involving empathy and emotional abilities. And, she hesitated, I need you to be ready to get me out quickly if something goes wrong. He-Jin, Du Yun's voice was full of concern. Maybe you should walk away from this contract. She touched the silver pendant at her neck. No, but for the first time in 200 years, I'm not sure if I'm the hunter or the prey. In the cafe below, Sumin started a new drawing. He-Jin wondered what the child saw when she looked at her. And more importantly, what Jinho's genetically enhanced empathy would see if they ever came face to face. He-Jin watched as Jinho closed the cafe early that evening. This was different from his usual routine. Through her invisible suit's advanced sensors, she followed him as he walked through the darkening streets of New Seoul Colony. Sumin wasn't with him tonight. Jinho entered an old warehouse district. The buildings here were empty and forgotten, perfect places for secret meetings. He-Jin moved closer, her curiosity growing stronger than her caution. Inside one of the warehouses, she found something unexpected. A group of thin, pale-skinned aliens huddled together in the shadows. They wore torn clothes and had marks on their wrists where chains had been. Escaped slaves from the outer rim. Jinho walked up to them without fear. The transport ship will be here in 1 hour, he said softly. It will take you somewhere safe, where the slave traders can't find you. A small alien child coughed, and Jinho knelt beside her. He pulled out a medical scanner from his pocket. He-Jin recognized it as military-grade equipment, worth more than his cafe made in a year. You'll feel better soon, he told the child, giving her medicine. The new colony has good doctors who will help you heal. Why? One of the adult aliens asked. Why do you help us? If they catch you. Jinho smiled that same gentle smile he used in his cafe. Because everyone deserves to be free. And because someone helped my grandmother when she escaped from the labor camps on Mars. Helping others is how we make the universe better. He-Jin's hands tightened into fists. This wasn't just a cafe owner helping a few escaped slaves. This was organized. The medical equipment, the transport ship, the safe colony. Jin-Ho was part of something bigger. Back in her ship later that night, Ho-Jin found more of Su-Min's drawings waiting for her. The child had somehow left them inside the ship, despite all the security systems. These pictures showed the slave traders, drawn in dark colors, and Jin-Ho helping the slaves escape, drawn in bright, warm colors. At the bottom of one drawing, Su-Min had written, "Dad says everyone has light inside them, even you." Jin called Du-Yun. His hologram appeared, looking worried. "I found something," he said before she could speak. "The genetic modifications in Jin-Ho's DNA. They match a secret Earth government program called Project Bridge. They were trying to create humans who could understand and connect with any species in the galaxy. Perfect diplomats. Perfect peacemakers." "What happened to the program?" Jin asked. "It was shut down when some of the test subjects started helping alien refugees escape from dangerous situations. The governments thought they were too independent, too willing to help others instead of following orders." Du-Yun paused. Jin-Ho was one of the last subjects before the program ended. Jin looked at Su-Min's drawings again. "And his daughter? Did they modify her too?" "No," Du-Yun said. "She was born with these abilities. Natural evolution of the modified genes. She's the first of her kind. A human who can naturally see and understand things no other species can." A warning light flashed on Jin's ship controls. Someone was approaching the cafe. Her cameras showed 3 figures in black combat suits. They moved like professional killers. "Other assassins," she whispered. "The 3-day deadline." "Jin, get out of there," Du-Yun urged. "This isn't worth your life." But Jin was already checking her weapons. She had spent centuries being the perfect killer. Now, for reasons she didn't understand, she was about to risk everything to save her target's life. The 3 assassins moved toward the Stardust Cafe like shadows. Jin watched them through her ship's cameras. They carried energy weapons that could burn through walls. These killers weren't interested in being quiet or clean. They wanted to destroy everything. Inside the cafe, Jin-Ho was cleaning up for the night. Su-Min sat at her usual table, but she wasn't drawing. She was looking straight at the security cameras, straight at Jin. The child's eyes held no fear, only trust. Jin touched her silver pendant. In 200 years, she had never broken her most important rule: never interfere with another assassin's contract. It was a rule that had kept her alive, a rule that had made her the best. The first assassin reached the cafe door. Jin made her choice. She jumped from her ship to the street below, her invisible suit making her fall silent. The first assassin was reaching for the door handle when Jin's stun blast hit him in the back. He fell without a sound. The other 2 assassins turned, their weapons ready. They couldn't see Jin, but they knew someone was there. Energy blasts lit up the street with blue light. "Get down," Jin shouted to Jin-Ho through the cafe window. To her surprise, he was already moving, pulling Su-Min under a heavy table. He moved like someone who had been in danger before. One of the assassins had thermal vision gear. He spotted Jin's heat signature and fired. The blast caught the edge of her invisible suit, making it flicker. For a moment, everyone could see her. "The shadow of silence," one assassin said. "Why are you protecting the target?" Jin didn't answer. She fired 2 more stun blasts, but these assassins were good. They dodged and kept shooting. The cafe's windows shattered. Tables burned. The air filled with smoke. Then something strange happened. Jin-Ho stood up from behind his cover. He wasn't holding a weapon. He just stood there, looking at the assassins with those kind eyes that saw too much. "You don't want to do this," he said softly. His voice carried through the smoke and chaos. "I can feel your doubt, your fear. You're not killers by choice." One of the assassins hesitated. His weapon lowered slightly. "They forced you," Jin-Ho continued. "They threatened your families. But there's another way. I can help you, like I help others escape. The second assassin's hand started shaking. He-Jin watched in amazement as Jin-Ho's words reached into their minds, touching the truth they had buried deep inside. But the third assassin wasn't listening. He raised his weapon to fire at Jin-Ho. He-Jin moved without thinking. She jumped between them, taking the blast in her side. Her invisible suit failed completely, leaving her exposed. The pain was intense, but He-Jin stayed standing. She looked at the assassin who had shot her, letting him see her face. "Leave," she said, "or I will show you why they call me the Shadow of Silence." The assassins looked at each other. Then they ran, leaving their unconscious partner behind. He-Jin fell to one knee, holding her injured side. Jin-Ho walked over to her slowly. She waited for fear or anger, but his face showed only kindness. "Thank you for protecting us," he said, holding out his hand to help her up. "Would you like to join us for dinner? Su-min makes excellent rice balls." Su-min appeared beside her father, holding up a new drawing. It showed He-Jin standing between them and the danger, drawn not in black this time, but in bright, warm colors. "The light inside you is very bright," Su-min said with a smile. He-Jin sat at Jin-Ho's kitchen table, watching as he treated her injured side with advanced medical equipment. The wound from the energy blast was healing quickly. Su-min had insisted on putting a bright blue bandage over it, saying the color would help her feel better. "Why did you save us?" Jin-Ho asked as he put away the medical supplies. His apartment above the cafe was small but warm, filled with children's drawings and the smell of good food. "I don't know," He-Jin answered honestly. In 2 centuries of killing, she had never felt confused about her actions until now. Jin-Ho smiled that gentle smile of his. "I think you do know. You just haven't let yourself feel it yet." He-Jin looked at her hands. They had taken so many lives. "Tell me about Project Bridge," she said, changing the subject. "Tell me what they did to you." Jin-Ho sat down across from her. "They wanted to make better humans," he said. "Everyone else was trying to make stronger soldiers or faster runners. But one scientist had a different idea. She thought the galaxy needed people who could understand others, who could feel what they felt." "The genetic modifications," He-Jin said. "Yes, they changed our brains to understand emotions better, to see the connections between all living things." Jin-Ho looked at a photo of Su-min on the wall, but they didn't expect what would happen next. "We didn't just understand others. We wanted to help them. We couldn't ignore suffering once we could feel it so clearly." Su-min came to the table with 3 cups of hot chocolate. She put one in front of He-Jin. "Dad can feel when people are hurting inside," she said. "I can see things others can't, like your sadness and your light." He-Jin wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "Is that why they want you dead? Because you help people escape?" Jin-Ho nodded. "There are powerful people who make money from others' pain. From war, from slavery, from fear. People who can bring peace are bad for their business. The criminal organizations that run the slave trade," He-Jin said, understanding now. "They hired the assassins. They hired you too," Jin-Ho said gently. "But you chose differently." He-Jin's communicator beeped. Du-Yun's worried face appeared in a hologram above the table. "He-Jin, you need to run," he said quickly. "They know you betrayed the contract. They're coming for you, all of you." Jin-Ho stood up calmly. "How many?" "At least 20 ships entering Earth's atmosphere," Du-Yun replied. "All carrying hunter teams. They'll be there within the hour." Su-min touched He-Jin's hand. The child's fingers were warm against her cold skin. "Don't be afraid," she said. "Your light is stronger than their darkness." He-Jin looked at her silver pendant, then at Jin-Ho and his daughter. She had spent centuries being the perfect killer, living in shadows and silence. But here was a man who fought with kindness instead of weapons. Here was a child who saw light instead of darkness. "Du-Yun," she said, "how quickly can you get those escaped slaves to their safe colony?" "Within 6 hours." "Why?" He-Jin stood up, Her decision made. Because we're going to need their help. It's time to do more than just help people escape. It's time to stop the ones who profit from pain. Jin-Ho's eyes met hers, and for the first time, He-Jin let herself feel what he felt. Hope. He-Jin's ship moved silently through space, cloaked from all sensors. Inside, Jin-Ho sat at her communication station, speaking softly to people across the galaxy. His voice reached through the darkness, touching hearts and changing minds. The slave traders aren't just hurting people, he explained to each contact. They're hurting the future. Every person they chain is someone who could have made the universe better. Su-min sat next to He-Jin in the pilot's seat, drawing maps of places he could somehow see without being there. Her pictures showed secret bases and hidden routes that weren't on any official charts. The bad people are scared, Su-min said as she drew. They know we're coming, but they can't hide their darkness from my eyes. Do-Yun's hologram appeared on the ship's main screen. The escaped slaves are spreading the word through the underground networks. More ships are joining us. People you've helped over the years, Jin-Ho. They want to fight back. He-Jin checked her weapons while she listened. Her invisible suit was repaired, but she had added something new. A small blue patch where Su-min had placed the bandage. A reminder of the choice she had made. The criminal leaders are gathering, Do-Yun reported. They're meeting on a private space station near Jupiter. All the major slave trade bosses in one place. They think they're safe there, He-Jin said, behind their guards and their weapons. She looked at Jin-Ho, but they don't understand what they're really facing. Jin-Ho nodded. Their own guards are tired of violence. Their pilots want a different life. Every person has light inside them, waiting for a chance to shine. He-Jin had seen it herself over the past week. Jin-Ho didn't fight the hunters who came after them. He talked to them. He listened to their stories. He showed them a path away from violence. One by one, their enemies became their allies. More ships approaching, Do-Yun warned. Hunter vessels, heavily armed. Let me speak to them, Jin-Ho said. He-Jin wanted to argue, to fall back on 2 centuries of solving problems with violence. But she had seen too much now. She had seen how words could be stronger than weapons. Jin-Ho's voice went out to the hunter ships. I know you were hired to kill us. I know you have families to feed. But I also know you dream of something better. Let me show you another way. The hunter ships slowed, stopped, their weapons powered down. We're receiving a transmission, Do-Yun said, sounding surprised. The hunters, they're offering to help us get onto the space station. Su-min finished her latest drawing. It showed the space station, but not as it appeared on sensors. Her picture revealed hidden doors, secret passages, and most importantly, the room where the criminal leaders were meeting. The universe is changing, Jin-Ho said softly. People are remembering who they really are. He-Jin looked at her silver pendant, thinking of her own change. She had been the shadow of silence, the perfect killer. Now she was something else, something better. The station is just ahead, she said. Are you ready? Jin-Ho smiled. With you protecting us, and Su-min guiding us, I'm not worried. The light always wins, Su-min said, taking He-Jin's hand. Even if it takes time to remember it's there. The space station's meeting room was filled with the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy. They sat around a large black table, discussing profits from their slave trade. None of them noticed as the door silently opened and closed. He-Jin stood invisible in a corner, watching Jin-Ho walk calmly into the room. He wasn't wearing armor. He carried no weapons. He simply walked in and sat down at the empty chair at the table's end. Su-min stood beside him, holding his hand. The criminals jumped up, pulling out their weapons. How did you get in here? Their leader demanded. Your guards let us in, Jin-Ho said quietly. They're tired of hurting people for you. Everyone is tired of the pain you create. Kill them, the leader shouted into his communicator. No one responded. Your security teams are drinking coffee in their break room, Jin Ho explained. They're sharing stories about their families, making plans for better lives. He looked around the table, just like all of you wanted to do, once. You don't know anything about us, one of the criminals snarled. I know everything about you, Jin Ho said. His voice was gentle but reached every corner of the room. I can feel the scared children you used to be. The dreams you had before the universe hurt you and made you think hurting others was the only way to survive. Su Min looked at each person in turn. Your light is so dim now, she said sadly. But it's not gone. It's never gone. The criminals shifted uncomfortably. Some lowered their weapons. He-Jin watched as Jin Ho's words found the truth inside them, just as they had found the truth inside her. We have evidence of all your crimes, Jin Ho continued. Right now, it's being sent to the Galactic Council. Your empires are falling, but I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to offer you a choice. He-Jin stepped out of her invisibility. Several criminals gasped as they recognized the shadow of silence. She placed her silver pendant on the table. I chose to change, she said. I chose to protect instead of kill, to help instead of hurt. You can make the same choice. The universe is changing, Jin Ho said. People everywhere are remembering their light. Your slaves are escaping. Your hunters are changing sides. You can be part of this change, or you can fight it and lose everything. The leader laughed, but it sounded hollow. Pretty words won't change the galaxy. They already have, Su Min said. She held up her latest drawing. It showed the room they were in, but not as it was now. The picture showed everyone sitting together, talking, sharing ideas for how to make things better. In her drawing, everyone's faces were bright with remembered light. One by one, the criminals looked at the picture. One by one, they saw themselves as they could be, as they wanted to be. The first weapon clattered to the table, then another, and another. Later, as Galactic Council ships arrived to help sort everything out, He-Jin stood with Jin Ho and Su Min in the station's observation room, watching Earth shine like a blue jewel in the distance. Will you come back to the cafe? Su Min asked, taking He-Jin's hand. Dad makes the best hot chocolate in the galaxy. He-Jin looked at her own hands. They had taken so many lives. But now, with Jin Ho's guidance and Su Min's sight, maybe they could help save lives instead. Yes, she said. I think I'd like that. Jin Ho smiled. Everyone deserves a chance to find their light again. Even the universe's greatest assassin. The end.